Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right, so last time around we stopped at this part here. So to continue, we will look at deductive and inductive logical reasoning. Right, so we will look at what was mentioned in your book, and then I'll try to explain it to you in a way that it's easy to understand. Right, so these two terms are approach to research, a researcher derives research question and hypothesis from the selected research idea. Right. Okay. So what is deductive logical reasoning? So it says here, deductive logical reasoning starts with a general idea or a theory, followed by hypothesis and data collection. So it starts general and followed by hypothesis and data collection. Then it moves towards something which is more specific, observable evidence to test or to verify the hypothesis, theory, and idea. Right, so that would be a bit complex. Let me just explain it to you in an easy way. Right, so as what was mentioned in your book, it starts with something which is general towards something which is specific. So it starts with general, something which is specific. Right, so let's look at an example of a deductive logical reasoning. Right, general idea to a specific statement. Apples are fruit. All fruits have seeds. So you can deduct that apples have seeds. So these two are general statements, and then we can deduct this statement here being a specific statement. Right, so that is a very simple example. Okay, so let's look at a real example of a research that uses deductive logical reasoning, because I don't think anyone is researching whether or not apples have seeds. Maybe that's an actual research, but I don't think this is a good example of an actual research. So let's look at a research that is conducted about carbonated drinks, whether or not it makes you fat. Right, so using deductive reasoning, you can say that sugar makes you fat. Right, the second idea is carbonated drinks contains high level of sugar. Right, so we can deduct that carbonated drinks makes you fat, which is also the hypothesis. Right. Okay, so if you follow the normal flow of deductive logical reasoning research flow, right? So you have a theory first, and then you come up with a hypothesis, you collect the data, and then the data will confirm the hypothesis, and then you will come up with a conclusion. Right, so let's look at that in real hand. So you have a theory. The theory is that sugar makes you fat. Right, and then you can come up with a hypothesis where you can say, or a hypothesis is somehow like a prediction, right, where you can say that carbonated drinks make you fat. Right, and then when you conduct the research, you collect data. Right, and when you collect the data, you found that obese people, right, drink a lot of carbonated drinks. Right, so all the data leads to the conclusion which confirm the hypothesis that says that carbonated drinks cause obesity. Right? Okay, so let's continue with inductive logical reasoning. Right, so it says in your book that inductive logical reasoning, on the other hand, refers to logical reasoning that starts with many specific observations. Okay, it starts with many specific observations and move toward general ideas. Patterns or theory to capture what they show. Right, so this is somehow what you call contradictors to deductive logical reasoning. Right, so let's look at an example. Okay, inductive logical reasoning. So it starts with specific observation and it moves towards a general idea. Right, a very simple example. Apple is a fruit. Okay, specific statement. The basket is full of apples. Right, so inductive reasoning is the basket is full of fruits. Okay, so that's a basic example of an inductive logical reasoning. So let's look at how it is used in an actual research. This is my research. Okay, inductive reasoning. Pollution is an environmental issue. Cecil Rajendra writes poem about pollution. Right? So a general idea is Cecil Rajendra is an environmentalist. Okay, so let's look at the flow of research for inductive logical reasoning. So you start from a theory, right? And then you have a research question, and then you collect the data, and then you answer the research question, and you build the theory, right? So the theory is eco-criticism, right? And then the research question is Cecil Rajendra an environmentalist? And then once you collect the data, you found out that Rajendra's poem talk about pollution, right? So this data answer the research question, okay, whereby Rajendra's poem is environmentalist, right? And then the theory that we will build up is Rajendra or Cecil Rajendra is an environmentalist, right? So that is a real world example of an inductive logical reasoning, right? I think you might have noticed that for both of my examples, you can see which one is quantitative and which one is qualitative. Right, so it says in your book that most research in social sciences emphasize one approach over the other, although many researchers are not strictly inductive or deductive. Right, there's no rigid rule for choosing which one or which. Right, so in social science you can choose whatever you want. It depends on your type of research. Right, so it says here, okay, so this more specific understanding of how a deductive research is done, right? So if you use a deductive approach, okay, and then it's used on a quantitative data, okay, so usually a researcher will need to devote a lot of time to specify the hypothesis precisely, right? So you spend more time to come up with a hypothesis, but once you got the hypothesis correct, right, so the steps will be easier. Subsequent steps such as data collection and analysis can proceed in a fairly straightforward manner. Right, so if it's a quantitative research, usually it's going to be difficult first to come up with a hypothesis, and then once you get the correct hypothesis, things will be easier. In contrast, if it's an inductive approach, which is on a qualitative data, which is my research, alright, so you don't have to devote much time to develop the hypothesis. Alright, but once you get to the analysis, okay, you have to spend more time on it. Alright, so this is my challenges later on. I know that most of Rajendran's poem is an environmental poem, or most of the poems are eco poem, but the challenge is to analyze all that later on. Right, to analyze all of the poems in detail. Right. Okay, so last but not least, the end of the subtopic here says that it takes time to develop judgment skill to decide whether deductive quantitative or inductive qualitative approach works best for a research idea. Right, so you should be able to pick the most effective approach if you have read many past literature, you understand the specific features of quantitative and qualitative research approach, and you understand how to evaluate the strengths and limitations of various research methods. Right, so let's highlight that. Right, so thank you very much. I think that will be the end for this part. Okay, later on we'll continue with validity and reliability.